So I'm Gabrielle Rabinowitz. I'm here from the American Museum of Natural History. I'm very, very excited to be here, so thank you so much to By Gotham for inviting me. This is my second time at this conference, and I had such a great time last time that I wanted to come and give a talk this time. Here I am. So my talk is called Start 'em Young, Tips for Teaching Python to Kids. Give you a little bit of an overview. I will introduce myself first. Then I will introduce the Coding Quakes program that I'm going to be describing today. We'll do a coding activity. Don't think you're going to get away from coming to a teacher's talk without doing something. It's going to happen. You're going to have fun, I promise. We'll talk about the key takeaways, and then I have time for questions. So who am I? Well, I'm the lead teacher of the Bridge Up STEM program at the American Museum of Natural History. This is the newest education program at the museum, and it's very exciting. It's actually devoted to increasing representation of women in computer science. So most of our programming focuses on opportunities for women, girls to learn how to code. But we also collaborate with the other educational programs at the museum, including youth initiatives. And one of the programs we work on is something called Coding Science, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But you can ask me about this. You can ask me about women in coding. We do a lot. My background is actually primarily in science research. I have a master's in biology from Rockefeller University. But it was while I was there that I learned that nowadays you really can't do science without coding, in my opinion. My data sets were so large. I was working on bioinformatics, RNA sequencing data sets, that I tried to use Excel, and they crashed Excel. So I needed to learn Python by force, and it turned out I loved it. And now I want to teach it to people way younger than I was when I learned it, so they're prepared and equipped to use it in science or anything else that excites them in life. That's me. OK, so let's dive into Coding Quakes. What is it? So Coding Quakes is a new week-long Python coding camp for New York City middle school students, boys and girls, at the Museum of Natural History. There's no prior coding experience required or expected. The coding lessons are embedded in hands-on exploratory science lessons. That's really what makes it special, in my opinion. Right? There are many places and ways that students can learn, that kids can learn how to code around the city, or around the world, or on the internet. But I don't think any of them can do exactly what we do at the museum, partially because we can incorporate museum resources. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that is. So these are just a couple of pictures to give you a sense of how diverse the experience is at a coding camp at AMNH. Students are in front of computers, yes, but they're also walking around museums, sometimes walking around Central Park, taking notes, doing hands-on activities, really getting a physical feel for science exploration. So what makes the AMNH teaching environment special and unique? There's no homework, there's no tests. This is not a classroom per se. It's an informal learning environment, which we hope means fun. If you're introducing something like coding, I think we all know there's a lot of joy and fun to it. And so I think it's very important to teach coding in an environment that is fun. We have connections with scientists. We have a lot of active science research going on at the museum in departments like astrophysics, comparative biology, and many others. So there are scientists on hand, around, to come in and talk to students and show them how they incorporate coding into their daily work. We provide laptops and lunch for the students that come to the classroom, so they're very comfortable. They have all the tools that they need. This is a luxury that we have, that we can provide this. So they don't need to have any technology tools that they have. We provide that for them. We have a large education support staff, so we really have people on hand to print things out, to go, if something breaks, to come and fix it for us. So we have a lot of support, and I will give them thanks every time I talk about this. They make it all possible. And the museum itself is one of the largest museums in the world. We have 33 million specimens on hand. We have all of the exhibits. I'm sure those of you who live in New York City know you've been there. Those of you who are visiting New York City, I encourage you to come visit. You'll have a great time. There's so many incredible things to explore and discover. So this is what makes the AMNH teaching environment special. Just to give you some pictures, here is this past summer, these were all of the students we were teaching at AMNH this summer, in all sorts of different programs, not just the coding ones. Of course, some of the coding students, these are some high school girls I teach, are sitting along the side there, but you can see the diversity of just so many programs happening. And then what's actually there at the museum, in the case of Coding Quakes, which is an earth science program, we have an entire hall devoted to the planet Earth, to specimens of rocks and things found from the Earth's core, to models, visualizations. So there's really a lot of richness there in terms of educational science content. So OK, yes, it's the Museum of Natural History. It's not surprising that there are some cool rocks. But why do we teach coding at AMNH? Well, the mission, part of the AMNH mission statement is to discover, interpret, and disseminate through scientific research and education knowledge about human cultures, the natural world, and the universe. And I love this mission statement because there's so many ways you can take this. And the way the education department has taken it, especially recently, is to really want to instill in students and visitors the sense of scientific research and what's that process like. And not just hearing about it, but doing it, right? Actual inquiry, scientific inquiry. And nowadays, scientific inquiry, as I learned myself in grad school, requires coding. It's not just a fun thing that might be helpful to learn. Almost all of the scientists at the museum, if they aren't doing it, someone in their lab is doing it. The astrophysics department is all of their research is almost entirely done in Python. So that's what they do every day. They come to work, they start coding in Python. So this is how scientific research at the museum is actually being done. If we want to introduce that to our students, coding is part of that. But of course, it's also pretty cool to teach students how to code because it prepares them for so many other things. So what are the actual learning objectives for coding Quakes? I told you about what makes the environment special, but once we have the students there, they're having fun, they have laptops, what are they actually doing? What are we hoping they're going to take away from the experience? Well, we hope that students will be able to edit and write basic Python code. If we're not too ambitious, we're not hoping that they're going to be able to do machine learning and all that stuff by the end of the week, but we do hope that they'll be able to define a variable, write a for loop, use conditionals, things like that. They'll feel confident that they can write a basic Python script and have it do what they want it to do. This is maybe the key point, describe why coding is useful and important for science, right? Not just say, I can do this in a vacuum, I can make a for loop, I can say hello world, but how can I actually use these skills to do science? How do professional scientists do it, and how can I model that here at the museum? This is a very specific goal, modify pre-existing code to display a map of earthquake data. That's what they actually get at the end of the week. They actually get to see on a map where earthquakes are happening around the world and know that they helped write the code that made that map possible. And then in terms of a more scientific goal, describe tectonic plate structure and movement, how this movement results in earthquakes. So they're also learning some science content. How do earthquakes happen, right? But it's all together integrated with coding, and that's what I'm going to show you about as I continue this talk. And finally, present and explain code, explain scientific questions and results. We build this into all of our programs. The students are not just coding and then they go away. At the end of the week, they actually give a presentation on their work. They show their code, they show their results. Their parents come, it's really fun. And we actually think that that's part of training for if you're going to be a coder, if you're going to be a scientist, really just in life, to be able to present your work confidently, explain it to others. And I really enjoyed seeing these talks today. I was like, this is what I want my students to be able to do, right? Get up in front of a group of people like this, show their code, explain it. And that's why we have them model that at the end of the week. So what does that final project look like? This is a snippet of the code. You may not be able to read it on the screen. We don't have the middle school students write this all from scratch. Most of the coding scripts they write from scratch are simpler, but they do understand it. They especially understand the conditionals, the for loops, they understand RGB values, and they can go in and modify the code in meaningful ways so that they can take data of where earthquakes occur on the Earth, a latitude, a longitude, and a magnitude for that earthquake, and they can then plot it on a graph over there, color-coded by magnitude. Some of the students get more advanced. They also start changing the size of the points. So all three of these are real middle school student final results that they complete at the end of the week. So it's really impressive what they do, and they're very proud of themselves. Not only that they've made this visualization, but that they can draw scientific conclusions, right? Can anyone tell me why there are so many earthquakes over here on the edge? It's a continental plate. Right, so this is an actual observation you can make about Earth science based on, when you just have a spreadsheet of numbers, you don't know what that means. But when you convert it into a graph like this, you can learn things about the Earth. So this is exactly what we're hoping they'll take away from the week. So what's the approach? How do we do this? Well, there are two teachers in the classroom, one science expert and one coding expert. Sadly, only one of us is here today. I was hoping that my co-teacher would be able to join me, but he had to teach. So here I am. I'm the coding expert in the classroom, and my co-teacher has an earth science teaching background. So together we're passing back and forth lessons. We're taking turns being the lead teacher in the classroom and the supporting role. And I highly recommend that if you have the luxury of another person to teach with you. We have at least one out-of-classroom experience per day. They're not just sitting in the room with their computers. They're either going to haul an exhibit at the museum, going outside to look at rocks in Central Park, doing something that gets them out of their seats, away from the laptops, doing something else. All of our coding activities tie into science explorations and data gathering. This is, I think, really key, especially when you have a sort of lofty goal of teaching earth science and coding at once. It's important that everything the students are doing really brings these two concepts together, and I'm going to give you some specific examples of how we do that. We do hands-on computational thinking activities. We do like unplugged, not computer-based computational thinking activities that I think are really important and help reinforce the concepts, help students really kind of make everything click for them that may not happen if they're just sitting and coding. And we incorporate teamwork. Now, with middle school students, this can be a challenge. They're not always mature as high school students say to work together in a team. But I'm going to actually demonstrate for you one way that we address that, and we'll see if you are all more or less mature than middle school students. Remains to be seen. So let me give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about, of what makes our teaching approach unique. So here's one activity called Earth Science Data Types. This is one of the very first things the students do. We give them a scavenger hunt piece of paper that has some blanks in it. Find the volcanic bombs and describe 3 examples. What is a fault? What are the 3 kinds of ore, and what percentage of the mineral makes up the ore? All that information is, of course, there somewhere in the museum in one particular section. We take them to the Hall of Planet Earth. They walk around. They get to explore the exhibit. Hopefully, they're finding things out that aren't even on that sheet of paper, whatever draws their eye. But they also know they have to fill in those blanks. We do that for a while, come back to the classroom, and lo and behold, there's a place for them to put that data in to a Python coding environment. So in the very beginning, we have maybe created some variables for them, chromium percent, say, and they have to look on their sheet and fill in that percentage, right? So it's really, everything they do is intentional. We're never asked them to do something and then throw it away and move on to something else. That busy work thing, kids know that. You may think you're tricking them, they're not. They know when they're doing busy work. So everything they do has a point, and they get to feel like what they're doing has meaning, right? A equals 1, B equals 2, it's fine, it's okay. But if you're really actually finding out now, oh, hey, well, if it's that percent, then what's 100 minus that? This is the kind of stuff they're doing in math class, but hopefully it's bringing everything together, coding and earth science. So this is just one example. Another thing, this reinforces data types, right? Is the percentage a string? Is the percentage a float? Is it an integer? This is the real core concept we're hoping that they learn from this. But of course, they're learning the earth science content as well. So that's an example of science and coding being integrated. Here's an example of a physical computational thinking exercise. So for loops are hard for students to wrap their mind around at first. This was a challenge for me when I first started teaching coding to kids. I was like, for loops, it's iterable, they don't know what that means. It's a loop, they don't know what that means. I was like, what can I use that will be understandable if you really don't know what this is? And I realized a deck of cards. So what I do is I give groups of students, each of them gets a deck of cards, and I have them go around in a circle. I say, draw a card, and then write down the number on that card plus 5. They're always like, what about a queen? What about? I'm like, okay, Jack, Queen, King equals 10. You got to account for everything. And I just have them do that. I don't explain why they're doing that. I just have them go around in a circle, flipping up the cards, writing it down. They just do that for a while. They start to get a little bored. I'm like, trust me. Keep doing it. And then I talk to them about, then I introduce a new rule. If the card is red, write down the number plus 2. If the card is black, write down the number minus 3, right? So hopefully you see what we're modeling there. Another coding concept, what is it? Conditionals, exactly. So you may not think that you're learning how to code from this activity. You're just flipping over cards and writing things down. But then what I do is I live code for them. I put up a trinket, which I'll explain what that is. I open a coding environment on my screen. They all do it on their laptop. And I show them how we can turn what they just did with the cards into code. We actually write the for loop. We create a list that has a bunch of numbers. And we say, for card in deck, right? And I show them, I think I have learned that starting with this first, before I go into what a for loop is, it makes my life much easier. And they're actually learning the concept instead of just being like, whatever you say, a for loop, okay, whatever. They actually have experienced it physically. A final example is the conditional scavenger hunt. This is always a class favorite, and it's a favorite of mine too. And in fact, we have a woman in the room who actually designed it. So say hi to everyone. That's Lily Schachter. She originated this activity, and we stole it, and we keep using it because it's amazing. So this actually has the students walking through the halls of the museum, being told what to do if you're in this group, turn left at the dinosaur. But if you're in group 3, turn right at the dinosaur, right? So it's another thing where it's so much fun. You're walking through the museum saying hi to the T-Rex. How could you not be having fun when you're doing that? But you're also learning about conditionals. So these are the kinds of things we do in this class. OK, so what is the coding environment? I've kind of said it by accident a couple times. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Trinket. Not too many. I'm happy to introduce you to it. So it's a browser-based coding environment where you can run Python code. You don't need to have Python installed on your computer. You can run it from anywhere. It's just trinket.io, and if you want to do Python, trinket.io/Python. I believe the default is Python 2, but they also have a Python 3 version now up and running. And we find it incredibly useful. The students don't have to worry about what's installed on this laptop, which environment they're going to use. It's very simple. It has the color coding. It has a big run button. And then the results run over there on the right-hand side. We also really like this in the curriculum because this way, if we partner with, say, middle schools or other people who want to use this, all they need is access to this website. So that's really helpful. OK, so you're going to all get a chance now to try it out for yourself. So you don't have to do groups of 3, but you have to sit next to somebody. So find a friend, or 2, and take out your laptops. You do, if you have your laptop, take it out. If you don't, find somebody who does. Find a friend with a laptop. And please go to this website, tinyurl.com/coding Quakes example. Camel case.
I've never heard of camel case.
I did not make this password. I apologize for the password. It's luminary space, historian space, periodontics. Username student 00. Those are zeros. I deeply apologize. It's an inherited password. I mean, you know, it's the phrase passwords anyway. OK, when you get to the website, all you have to do is follow the instructions in the comments in the code. I have a couple of quick instructions. So you're going to work together. OK, so you're going to work with at least one other person. If you're doing it alone, you're doing it wrong. You can finish the trinkets yourself, but if you finish first, help the person next to you. Because the first group to finish first gets stickers. See? More or less mature than middle school students.
It doesn't actually sit on my lap like this if I'm not using that.
You cannot type for someone else. Each person should type their own answers. If you have a question, find someone next to you, ask them. Complete all of the trinkets, everything on the page. Scroll down, scroll on down.
Is it okay if one person does all the work and we take credit for it?
I don't know. We'll see about that.
She'll know that we just use it for so.
Assign it to an index 1, 0, 1, or 2.
The middle schoolers normally have, 30 or 45 minutes to do this, but I'll give you guys just one more minute, see how far you can get. Try to do all of them if you can. Get as far as you can. You think you're done? We'll see who gets the furthest in 1 minute. I'm going to give precedence to people who are working as a group.
He did a lot of work.
I don't know if this is right, but like.
Okay, yeah, that one's right. Let's see the next one. Yeah, cool. Let's see. Yeah, what was the first one? Your first one. Yes, you guys definitely got stickers. We'll see if other group. We have one completion over here, but since it wasn't a group, I'm going to see if another group gets it. Okay. Well, I know we didn't have really enough time for you all to complete it, but you can continue this on your own after. I'm glad to see everyone's enjoying it so much, but I do have a couple more things I wanted to get through. So this group over here got stickers. You all already have a bunch, so I'm going to give you a bunch. All right, I have extra stickers, so you can come get them at the end if you want. Okay, all right, everybody. So let's come back together and talk a little bit about your experience in that activity. So let's just talk about it together. What was actually helpful about that compared to other ways you've been taught something or you've learned something, especially in coding in your life? So anyone want to share something that was different about that versus other ways that you've learned how to code? Yeah, right.
Nothing was told to us.
Yeah, I really like that. Anything else?
Me, it's like my kids went to a camp learning some programming, but it was very much, I think they just told them the instruction. There's no like here is really pumping them to use some instruction you learn. So I think that's a big difference.
Thank you. What about working with someone else? Was there anything unique about that, about having someone else to try to motivate to learn or to work with them? Anybody? All right, well, anyway, I hope that you had some experiences, some thoughts that you can take away from that. What I want to talk about is working in groups. We find that this encourages students to help and teach each other, right? They all want to win those stickers. So when someone else in their group finishes is struggling, but someone finishes first, they will turn and help that other person. They won't do that if you don't incentivize them. Middle school students won't. Maybe adults don't either. But I think it's really awesome if you can get people teaching each other. And it's not just because I don't want to do all the work. It's because they learn, of course, right, as they're teaching. And they will. It's really great to have them teaching and learning from each other. And also, I hope you noticed that you weren't just coding A equals 1, B equals 2. Everything you were doing was related to an actual earth science topic. So maybe even learn some earth science from that. So I have a couple of key takeaways that I hope that you'll take away from this talk. This seems very specific to the Museum of Natural History. You may be asking, I don't work at a museum, Gabrielle. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Well, I think there's a lot you can learn from our experience that you can take away with any educational opportunity or outreach opportunity you have. First, don't underestimate kids. Right? We have middle school students doing this, and they all accomplish this. Part of it is that they're helping each other, that we have high expectations for them, but we do give them the support and the scaffolding they need to get there. Connecting coding with science works. For us, it's science. For you, it might be something else. It could be data science, architecture, art, design. You may have another expertise that you or a colleague has. Start thinking about ways you could tie that into coding education experience. Group work properly supported is effective. Hands-on activities help young students stay engaged. And even though my second head is not here, 2 heads are better than 1. If you want to learn more about Bridge Up STEM, that's the website. The middle school institutes, which coding Quakes is part of, that's the link. You can also just Google, AMNH Bridge Up STEM or AMNH Middle School Institutes. This will take you there. You can find me on Twitter at Gabrielle Rab. And thanks to, in absentia, Evan Rothstein. He helped me so much with this curriculum. We do things better together, sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much. So I hoped to have time for questions, but I may not. But there we go. If you want to talk to me after or get a sticker, please feel free to do so.